A shocking revelation by the Financial Times sheds light on the backstory of this shadowy diplomatic war. The American president, Donald Trump, is said to have directly threatened the European allies that he would cut off all arms supplies to Ukraine if they did not send their naval forces to the Persian Gulf to break Iran's blockade at the Strait of Hormuz. Trump seems to have lost his patience with Europe's stance, which until recently refused to get involved in the conflict with Iran, considering it not their war. According to officials, Trump conveyed that he would stop supplies to Kyiv, leaving Ukraine defenseless against Russia. Reports say that the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, in his communications with London, Paris, and Berlin, described Trump as being in a state of hysteria due to European reluctance. Under the weight of blackmail and with the risk of a complete American withdrawal from Ukraine, Rutte pushed for a hasty joint statement. On March 19th, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom were forced to declare their readiness to contribute to efforts for the security of the Strait of Hormuz. He was the one who rushed to draft the statement to prevent Trump's anger, who was threatening to derail strategic support for Ukraine right then and there.
Η εκπρόσωπος Άννα Κέλλη δήλωσε ξεκάθαρα οι Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες.
Trump considers it ridiculous to protect Europe from Russia, while Europe refuses to help him on the Iran front. In an interview with Reuters, Trump stated that he is definitely considering announcing his withdrawal, as he said, from the alliance in his conversation tonight. Donald Trump is further escalating his aggressive rhetoric against Tehran, warning of imminent strikes on critical political infrastructure. Through a post on the Truth Social platform, he conveyed that the American military has not even begun to implement its plans to destroy the remaining infrastructure in Iran, specifically naming bridges and power plants. This new warning comes just a few hours after the American president celebrated the bombing of a major bridge near Tehran, an attack that, according to Iranian media, left 8 dead and dozens injured. Donald Trump repeats that most of the Iranian military facilities have already been destroyed, calling on the leadership of what he calls the new regime to quickly reach an agreement. Significant damage has already been reported at the Pasteur Institute of Tehran, one of the oldest health facilities in the country, and at 2 major steel plants that have suspended their operations. The targeting of such facilities prompted the intervention of the president of the Red Cross, Mirjana Spoljaret, who noted that deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure constitute war crimes. Despite American-Israeli pressure, the Iranian side states that it does not intend to surrender. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, made it clear that the bombing of civilian infrastructure will not force his country to surrender. This rhetoric was accompanied by military action on the ground. The Revolutionary Guards announced the launch of long-range missiles toward Tel Aviv and the resort city of Eilat in southern Israel, activating the Israeli air defense. At the same time, Kuwait was also targeted by Iranian missiles and unmanned aircraft, confirming the spread of Iranian strikes against American interests in the Persian Gulf. From Seoul, South Korea, French President Emmanuel Macron chose to respond to the sarcastic remarks of President Donald Trump, which targeted both his policies and his personal life. The American president, during a speech on Wednesday, made pointed remarks against Macron, accusing him, as well as the other NATO members, of lacking support for American operations in the Middle East. In fact, Trump went on to make a particularly sarcastic comment about the French counterpart's personal relationship with his wife, Brigitte. "I call France. I call Macron, whose wife is reportedly being treated extremely badly. She is still recovering from the blow to the jaw," Trump said, among other things, at a private event at the White House.
It is well known that U.S.-Europe relations are now at their lowest point,
with the American president recently stating that he is seriously considering the possibility of the U.S. leaving NATO, since the allies did not support his country's military action against Iran. Trump called the alliance a paper tiger and has long stated that he had doubts about NATO's reliability. Commenting on the reaction of the European partners, Trump noted that apart from not being there, it was really hard for anyone to believe. He added that he did not put strong pressure on the allies to help the USA in the war against Iran, simply saying, I didn't insist much. I just think it should be automatic. He noted that Washington had automatically helped in other conflicts, citing its role in mediating the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Finally, he has made derogatory statements directly against the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, as well as the French president, which indicates that there is now a rift on a personal level between the leaders of the three NATO countries. The baton was passed from Trump to the current special envoy of the USA for Ukraine, retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who called for NATO to be replaced by a new alliance that would include Kyiv. According to international media, Keith Kellogg criticized NATO allies and proposed a new structure that would include Japan, Poland, and Ukraine. He described the alliance as a cowardly and ineffective organization. Speaking on The Hannity Show, Kellogg criticized NATO allies for their inability to resolve the conflict in Iran. She argued that the U.S. could benefit from other defense partners. She pointed out Article 13 of the North Atlantic Treaty, which states that any party may withdraw from NATO 1 year after giving notice of denunciation, and she suggested alternative alliance structures. The White House today requested $152 million with the aim of reopening the former Alcatraz prison. This is a request made by Donald Trump a year ago to convert the island, now a popular tourist destination in San Francisco Bay, into a correctional facility. The request was included in the budget proposal that the White House published for funding the government for the fiscal year 2027. Such spending requests are usually handled by members of Congress as proposals. The budget requests funds for the Federal Bureau of Prisons to cover the expenses of the first year's operations, aiming to rebuild Alcatraz into a state-of-the-art high-security prison. Alcatraz closed in 1969 and is under the National Park Service. Last May, the American president announced on social media that he was directing the Bureau of Prisons, the U.S. Department of Justice, and other authorities to reopen it, a significantly larger and renovated Alcatraz, in order to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders.
Thank you for watching us. To be the first to receive all the latest updates, like and subscribe to our channel.